Growing up, I thought that my generation had it so hard and that my parents couldn't possibly understand how hard life was for me, a lowly 16-year-old. And I mistook how hard their life was, thinking their life couldn't be as hard as mine. This exact same thing happened to Billy Joel in 1989 when Sean Lennon came into the studio and said, "Man, you have it so easy compared to how it was when we're growing up." To which Billy Joel responded with the song "We Didn't Start the Fire" in 1989. Since then, most generations have compared and contrasted their own generation to others. Whether you're a boomer or a snowflake, a Gen Xer, an alpha, it doesn't matter. We all think our generation is the worst or the best. Today we're going to look at Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire," and we're going to look at Fall Out Boy's new version of it that came out in 2023 and look at two major events that occurred. One in Billy Joel's, one in Fall Out Boy's, and one that I think accidentally got left off the list. So let's start. First, let's look at Billy Joel's song and the events that he covers. One specifically is still burning, and that is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Essentially, what this comes down to is land, money, power. So what happens is the Jews are drawn out of their countries completely and have no place to go. The United Nations steps in and decides to give them a place to live, a place to call home, a land that belongs to them since theirs was taken away. The United Nations happens to take it from Palestine, and Palestine doesn't believe that this land belongs to Israel. However, not wanting to start a world war, they allow it to happen, albeit in a very, very hostile environment. In fact, this is what essentially causes the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Palestine doesn't want to go to war with the United Nations and the nations that support them, so they allow the Israelis to be there. What complicates this is that one of the biggest places of commerce is on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, which belong to Israel and Israel's land. So what this happens is that basically one land is flourishing while another well-established land is not getting as much money. You can see why that would be a conflict. If we look over to what Fall Out Boy sings about, they talk about 81 very important things, but one of the ones that I think affects us every single day, because we have to wear school IDs, is what happened in April 4th, 1990 in Columbine, Colorado, when two young boys decided that they were going to exact revenge on their school, went into their school and shot up 14 students and 2 teachers. While this was not their plan was much more horrific. This event has affected everyone from then even till today. The major reason is because it all played out in real time, as we saw on TV. And the problem with this is 2 things. Technology was getting information to people faster than we could actually get the facts. So people didn't know who or where or what to look for because they were getting the wrong information. The other thing that this created was a sort of infamy and mystical sort of idea of what it means to be a mass shooter, inspiring several copycats that have followed in the years to come, and as recent as 1 month. What's the outcome of this, or what's happened because of this, are things like wearing our IDs to make sure we know who's supposed to be on campus, having doors that lock, having security booths, and some schools actually having metal detectors. There are even some places that enforce a zero-tolerance policy, is suspending and expelling students all over the nation. Simple act has been horrific for our nation. Now let's look at one last thing that wasn't covered in either song. A person who I think is a brilliant, genius entrepreneur and innovator. In fact, you use it every day. His name? Steve Jobs. He came up with the computer, as did Bill Gates, but the one thing he brought to the table was the introduction of the mouse. The mouse allowed the average person in the household to be able to use a computer in a way that was simple and elegant. And what happened because of this is several years later, in 2007, he finally introduces the touch phone and the iPhone, where you can play your music and phone calls and do everything you need in your hand. So he went from the hand being able to use the computer to the phone that you can carry in your hand. His genius and brilliance is what caused these things to happen. When looking in the face of what is, he didn't say, this is what we can do. He looked in the face of what could be and dreamed bigger and thought differently, which is actually their slogan. Created Apple, which has become Macintosh and has become synonymous with ingenuity. Without Steve Jobs, we wouldn't have the billions of smartphones and iPads and tablets and God knows what else, because of his innovative thinking of what was possible, not what you can do. Today, we've looked at 3 very important people in history, or very important things. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with Billy Joel sang about. We also looked at the Columbine massacre, which Fall Out Boy sang about. And then I talked about Steve Jobs, who I think is incredibly important to our everyday lives. After all, his invention is sitting in your pockets, on your desk, or you're looking at it right now. I'm recording on it right now, actually. So thanks to Steve Jobs, I bring you this speech. And hopefully the next time you think your generation is worse off or better off than other generations, keep in mind, it keeps going and going and going, and all we can do is hope for the best.